So you're leaving Fox Business. You're starting to go to UCB on the side to do
Hmm.
some. Is it all performance improv? Is there an element of just writing?
Yes, I was just a writer. I did some performance, but my heart's always been with writing. I do love stand up, but the actual like character actors at UCB
Mm-hmm.
are out of this world. Like it is such a joy seeing some of those people perform. Oh my God.
So that I imagine that created a little bit of a spark for you, at least professionally, but certainly not enough to entirely overcome this depressive period in your
No,
life,
and
right?
it is interesting the way in which so many comedians and comedy writers can have crippling depression and it will not affect their comedy writing skills.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fantastic podcast called The Hilarious World of Depression that is unfortunately discontinued, but it's interviews with famous comedians about how they deal with depression. And I had heard the first episode with Peter Sagal, who has a weekly NPR show. Like it's where he's a very upbeat performer. I had no idea he had depression, but it completely makes sense to me now. Like it's a different part of your brain working.
Is it compensating in some way, or it's just compartmentalization?
Um, it's mostly for me, it's mostly compartmentalization. But what's interesting is like with doing any job, there's an endorphin rush at doing something well. So it's not like the comedy itself is making me feel better. It's that I'm successfully doing something that
Uh-huh.
is a little bit of a rush. But comedy is like I don't know, for me it's like water where I could be in any kind of a state and I will still be. I was in a real like a big fight with my boyfriend earlier today where I was really mad at him, but I had to say a joke that I had written in my head. So I was getting mad at him because he hasn't been working out at all. And I was like, I like was in the middle of saying something and I was like, sighed and I was like, yes, I have to say the joke. I was like, you are giving me more resistance than the resistance bands you should be using. And he was very confused and it didn't help
Yeah.
my point.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, so I don't think I could stop. Like I pity the person whose eulogy I have to give because it won't stop there either.
Was that the case before you were 24, 25? Were you always that way?
Um, Actually, that's a great question. No, I had a very delayed, what's the word I'm looking for? A delayed period of my life where I was a refined audience member. So, one of the things that is helpful, I think, in the development of a comedy writer is just to hone your taste. And I spent a lot of years just like watching and rewatching shows and stand-ups and reading books and sketches and also admiring my older sisters who are devastatingly funny. And I did not consider myself a comedy writer or a comedian. I just wanted to make some people laugh. It was only when I started getting paid really to be a comedy writer did I did this kind of become a deeply ingrained way of thinking for me.
Who are, I mean, so many tangents we're going off on here, but I love it. Who are who are some of your comedic inspirations, or who are some stand-ups that you love?
I will say, if you ask any like comedian or comedy writer who's the funniest person, the answer will always be somebody you don't know, some
Mm-hmm.
nobody. Like a older brother is usually a common motif. For me, it's my oldest sister, Leah. There's something about growing up and just wanting to impress a family member that like really puts its stamp on you. But in terms of like professionals in the field, Tina Fey is just an obvious one because she is just a genius. I would say I think a lot in terms of writers. There's a lot of writers at SNL that really just capture my heart. Sarah Schneider, who was the head writer, and Chris Kelly was her partner. And then I would say Key and Peele are like up there. They're mostly performers, of course, but they clearly are writers as well. And I think for them both, it's so entwined because they're improv guys that they're writing while they're performing. And I endless devotion.
I lived in New York a few years ago, and I lived in the same apartment building as John Mulaney, and I would
Oh
always
my God.
I never said anything to him. I don't know why, but I would always share the elevator with him and his dog Petunia, and I
Oh,
just never got the courage
Petunia.
to say hello.
Oh my God. I love John Mulaney. That's incredible. No, I can't do a good impression. I was trying. I'm not an impression comedian. He has this incredible intonation that it's a perfect impression in my head.
Yeah, he's
I
fantastic.
don't. In my head, it comes out like Katharine Hepburn. Ah, it's unbelievable. Ah, like that. But it's yeah. I'll work
He's
on it.
hosting this weekend, I believe.
Oh yeah, God, in 2 days. Boy, I that is the one thing that makes me miss New York, I have to say, is literally just Saturday Night Live, like being in the vicinity of Saturday Night Live. I've been lucky enough to go to a show and go to a couple after parties. And I vomited. I was that excited.
Who were the hosts? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, it was James Franco, was the show that I went to. The year when I went to a couple of different after parties, and when I was there for the after parties, it was God, this was like a couple of years ago. It was, I think, God, was it Seth Rogen, I think was one of them. And then the other one was the problem is they weren't the hosts that usually don't go to the after parties or aren't there for that long. So I don't remember who it was for the other two after parties. But it's like it was a little bit devastating, frankly, to be there because I was physically close, proximate to these people and so far away in terms of my career. And that weighed heavily on my heart, and it counteracted the elation of being there and in the presence of such talent. I felt like it's weird, but that's actually it's funny. That's actually a huge trigger for me is like deep compliments or deep successes in the wake of them, the immediate wake. I'll just get the biggest possible crash. So it's
Of your own
horrible.
successes. Of your own
Yeah.
successes.
I feel like in my past life, I had a Greek mythology type curse put upon me that my greatest successes would be the cause of my greatest depression. Can you believe the irony of that? That's so fucked up.